Well, Jonathan Tucker, before I get started here talking to you, let me tell anybody watching, if you haven't seen the season of Justified, or at least the last few episodes, you might want to tune away because we're going to talk about those things. So I guess in the words of what we typically say online, spoiler alert, don't watch this quite yet if you haven't watched the episodes. And Jonathan, I've got to say, after watching last night, it's good to see you alive and well today.
Yeah, it was quite a finale. Lots of animals went down, lots of big guys got, and it was fun to watch it from my couch here in LA.
Well, that was throughout this whole season. A lot of people, guest stars, supporting stars. I mean, they all were in danger at some point, and quite a few didn't make it to the end of the season.
Yeah, I was saying if you go hunting, you can buy the tags for the animals. Whether or not you get them is a different situation. Sometimes you might get got by them.
Well, let me give you a compliment. When you came on the scene, it was just 5 or 6 episodes left in the season, and of the whole series, as it turns out. And when you first came on, I thought, are they really going to introduce somebody new here at the very end that they want us to care about? And you embodied him so well. I think he became quickly a fan favorite, and became somebody that we wanted to see more of, even though we knew that we really wanted to see all these other characters wrap up as well.
That's nice of you to say. I was a fan of the show before I got the call to come be on it, which is a total trip and thrill. And you don't want to. It's a show that's based on extraordinary craftsmanship of story and of cast. So you want to come in there and do something great and take big risks. And you also don't want to screw up anything. So it's kind of a mixture of both. I'm glad it worked out on this one.
Well, since you were already a fan, you knew. I mean, I think the biggest thing about this show, even beyond plotting and even beyond storylines, was always the dialogue. The dialogue on this show was killer all throughout the 6 seasons. Was that a reason why you wanted to do this part?
Yes, and it certainly was. That Elmore Leonard cadence is quite beautiful. However, I didn't appreciate how hard it was. I found it endlessly challenging to get those words out of my mouth in that order, and the dialogue is so good, and the beats are so specific. The rhythm is so specific that you want to get every single word exactly as it is out on the page. But you've got lots of lines that start with, prepositions, or start with verbs, or they don't have, the grammar is so specific. So if it's not quite, if it's not exact out of your mouth, the whole thing kind of falls apart.
How do you take a character, and you've had a couple of these in your career, how do you take a villainous character and make them likable enough that the public wants to see more of them?
I mean, I don't know. I think, what brings somebody to a place where they're so damaged that they turn to, violence, or turn to places that people might consider creepy. I mean, I think this is, if you really try to understand who these people are, then I think that sort of empathy will be related to those who are watching. I mean, for instance, Boone, I think, is a really damaged guy. I think there's, no father figure to speak of, and you see how he kind of gravitates towards Marco, who's certainly not the kind of mentor that you'd want for somebody who's in deep need of spiritual sustenance, if you will. So I think when you start to see that these are real people and not just archetypes, you can understand how there's something a little bit more there for them.
Yet he did not lack at all in confidence or cockiness.
He did not like confidence or cockiness?
He did not lack in those areas.
Oh, yeah, no, not in the least. But it's a total cover-up. I mean, if you spend your whole life lying in a pot field with no mom or dad and no real friends, and you have a hard time connecting with anybody because you haven't had the social skills developed in like a nurturing community or a home or school setting, and all you do is play with your gun, and you get real good at it real fast, that becomes your only way to really show somebody that you have something to offer. Yeah, it's cocky, it's confident, sure, but it's a reflection of what he lacks, and the only tools that he has.
Talk about a little bit. We were discussing in our forums all the last few weeks about, okay, we know Boone's got to go down in this, it's somewhere toward the end of the season, probably the finale. But we didn't know if it would be Raylan, or if we didn't, some people in our forums were saying they were convinced it was going to be Loretta that took him down. What did you think, and what were your hopes?
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of the show. So you have to imagine, all I wanted to do was open up that script and see that Boone kills Raylan in the final episode. Not because I don't love Raylan, but because, what an extraordinary thing as an actor and as a fan of the show to be able to say in that final episode that you got to take down one of the great characters in television history. So that's deep down what I was thinking, but of course hoping. But I knew that there was the fastest gun in Harlan. Didn't belong to anybody but Timothy Olyphant. So I was hoping it would be some sort of a real classic Western showdown, and I was grateful that happened the way it did.
Well, two things about that scene. One was the way they laid it out and the way it was directed. That wide shot. We didn't know for 10, 15 seconds, maybe longer than that, who was dead, if either one or both or one or the other. So I just love the way that was directed.
Yeah, and it's a credit to Graham Yost and his writing staff there, the writers of the show, because they surprise you over and over. I mean, how many times as a fan of the show have you been like, whoa, my God, I can't believe that just happened? And it's like in the middle of the show or the middle of the season, or, characters that you really come to like or love, all of a sudden end up getting killed. So when I was reading it, I didn't know what was going to end up happening.
Yeah, a showdown like that, any other point of any other season, you're not thinking Raylan's dead, but in a finale of a series, you're thinking, hey, it could be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what is one of the things that makes a show like Justified so dynamic and exciting, is that they are not afraid to take those sort of risks.
Well, I saw Graham quoted last night in a couple of articles, and in one of them he said, they considered various options there, but one of the oldest things in all of Westerns, going back 100 years, is the veteran lawman facing off against basically a younger version of himself, and they wanted that.
Right.
And Loretta did have a say in how that showdown ended.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly. Might mean for a nice spin-off from Miss Caitlin Deavers.
She was great on there as well. What was his obsession with her, the character's obsession with Loretta?
Oh, I mean, I think when Boone decides that something is his, there's no other question about it. And she's his. It's one of these things where that's just when the character decides that he owns something, he owns it, or owns it.
And obsessions with hats too. He loved talking about hats.
Yeah, I love that's like this Elmore Leonard sort of and Western sort of stuff, but which I really, really dug. And the writers do such a wonderful job of tying all these things together. The idea that I only go for headshots, and then of course that's why I go for the headshot with Raylan at the end instead of going for a body shot with the vest. And of course, that's why I get just the tip of the hat like that. And my obsession with his hat, this idea that you're everything I hope, right down to the hat. There's this romanticized sort of version of what I want Boone, what I want the world to be like, the sort of moral code, and that's similar to what Raylan has this idea of a moral code. He has that line, like the problem is. The problem is you didn't knock. I didn't have a problem with you coming in here trying to shoot, with a shootout or try to hurt somebody. Like, the problem is you didn't knock. He's got that moral code, and in Boone's eyes, there's a moral code there too, and there are these romantic characters in the world, and Raylan is one of them. And of course, like this need for a male figure is apparent too in those first few scenes with Raylan. I mean, in an idealized world, Boone would have loved to have had Raylan be his mentor.
Yeah, just the twist and fates of life. You know, if that had happened, you know, maybe he's that young lawman entering the profession.
Yeah, and there's nothing in Boone's mind that, you know, all the people he's killed, all the horrible things that Boone has done in the past. There's nothing that in his mind that says, "Oh, you couldn't go be another Raylan Givens."
Well, speaking of Raylan, I want to ask you about a couple of actors on this show. The two you most often worked with, one was Timothy, and not only is he an actor on the show and the lead of the show, but he's also a producer. What was he like to work with?
Oh, he's wonderful. I mean, it's a little hard, you know, because here I am, just yapping my gums, and you know, just really working that Elmore Leonard, Graham Yost dialogue in my mouth, and he's looking at me like, you know. So I'm in the scene, and you know, I'm trying to be in character and not recognize the fact that I'm getting just this wacko look from Timothy Olyphant. And at first I was like, maybe I'm just really screwing this up. Maybe this is a little too big for these guys, because he's looking at me like I got 3 heads. But
I've interviewed him and I had the same feeling, so don't worry about it.
But you know, he couldn't have been more supportive, couldn't have been more helpful, even with some of the dialogue, you know, really helping just run some of those things, because it was a bit challenging for me at first. But he couldn't have been a nicer guy, and you feel very lucky to be able to come into a show like this in its 60s, and in the final 5 episodes, his train is moving at 115 miles an hour, and if he's the conductor on that train, he was very accommodating in terms of letting me get on.
And another guy joining the show this year, somebody I've just liked for decades, and that's Sam Elliott. You got to work with him a lot.
Yeah, and that cool, man. That was such a cool experience for me.
How does he hold his head to the side almost all the time?
Boy, that's a good question. That's a good question for the main man himself. I mean, he doesn't have email. I'll tell you, there's no Google Hangout for Sam Elliott. He is there's part of him that is, as one hopes, that's still very traditional in his personal life, which I really admire. You know, no email and barely a cell phone, probably. But it was a real thrill to get to work with him. I've been a big fan of his for a very, very long time as well, and he's as real as it comes.
When you're a young actor and you're working across, you know, especially a veteran actor, somebody that's maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s, do you pick up stuff? Do you try to get tips from them, even just in the acting, or even when you're, you know, off camera? What goes on in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the one thing about being an actor, when you come onto a show like this or a big movie, or you work with one of those actors who's like a hero of yours, or a show that you love, is that you still have to remember that you're fighting the same. You know, you're in the ring too, and you can't pull punches. You've got to go full out. You've got to take big risks. You've got to slip and come in with a hook that they don't expect. You know, you can't ever be precious or safe on the day, for yourself, for sure, but also for the other actors. You know, no one wants a polite actor. They want somebody who's going to surprise them and do something that nobody thought was going to happen on the script, on the page, on the day. So in that respect, you know, I'm right there, man. Let's do it. Come on, Elliot. But offset, yeah, you know, there's just a kind of a wisdom that you get in life, you know, for sure, and in the career in this business. I mean, I think the thing I would take away from Sam Elliott is the fact that you just put your head down and you just keep doing good work, and that's kind of what's going to get you to where you're going to want to be as a man and as an actor.
Well, you gave me a nice seg into your regular role, which is Kingdom on DirecTV. You are an MMA fighter there. What is this? I mean, I've watched some of them. Is this guy, in your opinion, a good guy, bad guy, somewhere in the middle?
No, my character, Jay Coolina. Yeah, no, he's a great guy. He's a great guy who was very much led down by his family, primarily by his family. and maybe a bit by society too. But no, that's a very pure, good heart. I mean, he's an addict, and there's not a person in this country or in this world that hasn't usually dealt with somebody who's an addict. And if you have, you know that unfortunately, you're in a kind of a menage a trois with somebody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict or an eating disorder or whatever it might be. And the third party in that relationship is the addiction. So, and usually an addict will protect that addiction over anything else. So it doesn't come out of any problems that Jay has don't come out of anger, or don't come out of a place of bad, a mean place. They come out of a place of protecting those he loves and the addiction that he needs to protect.
We talked about the difficulty of the rhythms and the lines on Justified. Here, not only do you have the script, but you've got a lot of physical, I'm sure just the rehearsals and preparation and choreography and all that kind of stuff, just the physical aspects of this one are grueling.
Yeah, they are. I'm not going to complain because I'm happy to work, and particularly on shows like Kingdom and Justified, because so many people would give their arms to be on these gigs. But you can't fake. You can't fake pulling a Colt single action revolver from a holster and firing in under a second, and you certainly can't fake walking into a cage with nothing but shorts on up against a real UFC fighter and expect people to buy you as a competitor. So you got to be in a certain level of shape, and you've got to move the way these guys move. And we've got the best trainers in that sport. Joe Daddy Stevenson is an animal, and is one of he's kind of our on-set day-to-day guy. Greg Jackson, who coaches John Jones and Cowboy Cerrone and Cub Swanson, who's fighting actually this weekend. He's one of the best coaches, trainers in the world. Is our guy. So, and then everybody who's not an actor, those are all fighters. Some of them are up and coming. Some of them are veterans. Some of them are currently fighting. So there's a lot of veracity on that set. A lot of people to keep us in check.
And Nick Jonas on this show, I mean, not a bigger performer in the world right now. And when you step on a stage for the first time with him, or in the rehearsals and such, were you expecting him to be as good an actor as he is?
Yeah, man. I got a lot. You got to have faith in the people putting together these projects. So, I wasn't. I'm intimately familiar with him now, but I wasn't as familiar with him when we started the first season. I've also learned. I've been lucky to do this for a while. As soon as you start making assumptions, or saying never, or saying always. You set yourself up to sound like an idiot. So I think it's always best to go in there with open eyes. And he has more than proved himself to not only everybody on our set, but I think anybody who's seen the show.
One last show to ask you about, another show that ended this season, coincidentally, was Parenthood. That was one of my favorite shows of the past decade, and you had a nice long guest role on there. But when you first started on there, that character, I really couldn't figure him out, but I guess his true colors came out over time.
Yeah, I don't know what true colors we're gonna say, because I actually
with the stuff with with Amber, and then also in the race against Christina. I've started to say Monica Potter. She was not willing to do some things that he was more than willing to do.
Well, look, I think politics is tough. And the good people of Berkeley, California deserve somebody who could affect change in a meaningful way and get the people's will pushed through a very difficult legislative process up there. And while Christina might have made a great mom, and maybe Bob Little might have made not the best dad, I don't think anybody in the community there in Berkeley would have wanted anybody else as the mayor of their community other than Bob Little. And sometimes you got to make hard decisions. Hard choices, but did it for the right reasons.
Sounds like you're ready for your own political campaign.
What's that?
you're ready for your own political campaign.
It was really too bad, because there was one scene that was cut out in the final episode where Bob actually pushed through the funding for Christina's school. So, and I have no problem, sharing this. Actually, you're the first person I've shared this with. So there was a scene where Monica's, her daughter graduated. No, I can't remember who. Somebody was graduating. I think maybe her son was graduating from high school. That's what, or graduating to go into high school. And at the graduation ceremony, Bob Little comes in and he says, "Hey, how are you?" Because I'd maybe just given him a commencement speech or something like that. And I tell her I had the funding for the school. So I end up wrapping it up in a really nice way, that despite the fact that I had rejected this proposal that she had, that I came through. And it's really just too darn bad that it didn't make it to air. But
well, that's what the DVD extras are for. You'll be on the DVD.
I hope so. Actually, that's really true. I hope that's the case. Because you can see how adamantly I defend my characters.
Well, I heard the same thing from a few weeks ago, I guess, when the series ended. John Corbett, had shot a scene like holding his grandbaby for the first time, and they didn't have that in the actual episode either. But he said he felt certain it would be on the DVD. So,
well, his certainty. I hope it's right. I hope that's right. I had a great time on that show. I'm a huge Jason Katims fan, and boy, it's nice to work, that's for sure. It's nice to create these characters with these writers and the other cast members on the show, and to come on, and it's quite an honor.
Well, you're getting calls from all the right showrunners, that's for sure. That shows that you're well thought of in the business.
It's ups and downs.
Well, listen, Justified has done well with guest acting Emmy wins. Maybe you'll be up on that stage here in September.
Well, I'll thank the good people in Mississippi on your behalf.
Good deal. Thanks, Jonathan. Have a great summer.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I really appreciate it.